So yes, biomedical engineer. I will give my shout out to Georgia Tech here. I bleed Georgia Tech. I am honored to be on several boards at Georgia Tech, and Georgia Tech really changed so much of my life and who I am. So I have built a software company before in the clinical, a SaaS software company with the other individuals on the team before. But one of my key things was, I mean, I went back to school at 29 to get my engineering degree. I was a single mom. I had a special needs 2-year-old, and it seemed like a brilliant idea to go and get my degree in engineering at Georgia Tech.
Have you ever wondered how a single mom with a special needs child made it big in the tech industry? Well, Angela Gill Nelms shares her incredible journey up next.
Well, thank you, Mike. There are lots of things that I haven't done. Should we start with that?
Well, why don't we start with
my next?
why don't we start with one of the things I think is really interesting about you? So you started as a biomedical engineering, right? And now you're I can't pronounce the company name, but you're the COO of, is it Atos?
Atos Imaging,
Imaging.
yes,
Yeah.
which is not in the biomedical space at all.
Yeah. So what were the key pivot points that led you to where you are now?
Oh, that's great, Mike. So yes, biomedical engineer. I will give my shout out to Georgia Tech here. I bleed Georgia Tech. I am honored to be on several boards at Georgia Tech, and Georgia Tech really changed so much of my life and who I am. So, but I went to school and got a degree in biomedical engineering and have spent almost my entire career in the healthcare space. So running clinic, and mostly in the clinical research space. I have built a software company before in the clinical, a SaaS software company with the other individuals on the team before. But one of my key things was, I mean, I went back to school at 29 to get my engineering degree. I was a single mom. I had a special needs 2-year-old, and it seemed like a brilliant idea to go and get my degree in engineering at Georgia Tech. And so I have spent most of my career saying I have to stay in healthcare. Like that's what I'm passionate about. In fact, one of that previous software company that I built, when they were recruiting me, I was employee number 4. I said, okay, one of my requirements is that we continue to be in healthcare. I don't want us to say it's too hard to sell into healthcare, and so we sell to Home Depot or something. So I lived that for almost all of my career. Okay, fast forward to in November of last year when I suddenly said, okay, I'm ready to make a transition out of the company that I was at to a new one. And I was really blessed with several opportunities. And this particular one, I had a friend who he and I had dinner, and he said, hey, there is this company I'm invested in, and he is looking, the CEO, Connor, is looking for someone in operations. He doesn't really know what he needs. I mean, I think trying to find a COO, that role can be very unique for the individual and for the company. So really trying to determine, okay, what you need is not as easy as people think it is. Okay. And so this friend of mine, Josh, said, hey, it's not in the healthcare space. I know you're probably not gonna be interested, but we just talked to him. And so I'm like, I pull up the website because I was looking for a new job, right? And so I pull up the website and I see Atos Imaging and facilities management and 3D scanning. And I immediately was like, well, I'm not even remotely interested in this company. So I show up with what turned out to be kind of my first interview in a sweatshirt, my hair in a ponytail. I don't know. I mean, I do think I had makeup on maybe, but I had not researched Connor, which it later became a joke because then when I interviewed with everyone else at the company, I really believe if you're going to be a part of a team, you need to get to know those individuals as humans. So I'd done all this research on everyone else except for Connor. And later he's like, am I the only person you didn't research? And yeah, it was because I wasn't interested in that space. It wasn't healthcare. Okay. But what it was, and the thing I love about engineers, and I'll just say engineers in general, is that if you've learned as an engineer how to solve problems and you've learned how to be what a Georgia Tech student once said, he called it a learning engineer. So if you're a learning engineer and you know how to solve problems, you can do that in any space. And so here I am, sweatshirt, hair in a ponytail, talking to the CEO of this company who's trying to decide what he needs in operations. And he demos the product to me. And then I start playing the story forward on the level of advancement that can happen in facilities management and the amount of not just the money and the impact on the GDP that this company can have, but the impact on the lives of the workers there, the impact on being, more green and energy saving and all of that. And my mind was blown. And oh, by the way, I have been telling him from day one, hospitals are also facilities too. So I can't wait until our first big customer is a hospital so that I could say that I'm in healthcare. But then I really struggled with it because the other opportunities that I had were in, for the most part, the healthcare space, kind of in my niche. And so I thought, I'm going to reach out to some of my mentors. And here is my plug to anyone. If you want to be a strong leader or a strong anything, develop a super solid core of mentors or people whose ideas and judgment you really respect. And so one of those individuals that I have so much respect for is Rahim Bea, and he is the Dean of Engineering at Georgia Tech, of the College of Engineering. And I'm on the board with him. So I went to him and I said, Rahim, do you think this is a mistake for my career, like leaving healthcare and going into facilities management? And he was like, no, I love this for you. I mean, really, it's just a reminder that if we're passionate about a problem and we can be a part of the solution and we love it, you can do that in any industry. So that's how I'm now working with some of our customers on 3D mapping of their stores and talking about IoT sensors and what new, SSO sign on, single sign on we're going to do for this organization. It's not a healthcare hospital, but it's so translatable between the two.
Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, I have a background in software development, and it cracks me up sometimes. You get people come to you and they say, "No, we need a person who's an expert in accounting but can write all this code." And then I think to myself, who actually has the time to be an expert in accounting, but also be an expert at coding? What you really want is someone who understands accounting and can ask the right questions and then take what you tell them and translate it into a final product. That's what you really want. Um, it's interesting. I was looking at your website and you have a quote right at the top. It says, "When you were born, you were given one opportunity to be yourself, build a legacy and make a difference." And I love that because in a sense, it's what you've realized by making that pivot from the healthcare to this, because you're still making a difference. You're still being yourself. You're taking your skills that you have and you're applying them just in a different vertical. I think it's admirable that you even took the role. Especially, I think it's funny that you just weren't really interested when you showed up. It's like, I don't really want this, and here you are. So kind of interesting. But we've talked about this already. You serve on some advisory boards, including Georgia Tech. How do you approach promoting diversity and inclusion within those roles?
Oh, wow. I love that question, Mike. I think what I have learned, and I take this back to my days when I was an engineer student at Tech. And my team, we did the first interdisciplinary senior design project. And when I went to the chair of the biomedical engineering department and said, hey, I think it's really silly that we're going to do this capstone project and I'm going to do it with students who've taken the exact same classes as what I have. Like, really? That's not how the real world is. And so I said, I want to have individuals from these other majors, such as computer science and mechanical engineering, and put a team together that way. And the beauty of that later is one beauty was that when I was interviewing for jobs and I told them I worked in this multidisciplinary, multicultural, very diverse team, it was literally, Mike, like a mic drop. No pun intended, but it was literally, they were like, hire her now, right? But what it taught me was the value of insight and perspective from individuals who come from all walks of life. And that means, male, female, or, we won't even go into, gender considerations, but individuals who've come from small towns, from big towns, from other countries. I think that we all, when we start working together, we see a problem and we see situations from different lenses and different perspectives. And when we do that, then when we start building out solutions or paths forward, the amount of inclusivity, the amount of level of success is so much greater because you're taking in so much more insight. And I think, especially I'm very blessed to be on the board to the president at Georgia Tech, and Angel is amazing. And it's super exciting to see the level of diversity he's bringing into that board, because one of Georgia Tech's initiatives is they want students from every single county in Georgia, every single county in Georgia. And that, I mean, it's a state school, right? So that is like, we want people from all walks of life because that's how we are going to engineer solutions that impact the whole world.
Oh, amen. I think it's interesting because I've had people on who are very focused on DEI. And honestly, there's been two guests that stick out. And one I felt was kind of focused on it for the wrong reasons, and the other one for the right reasons. To me, it's a cultural issue.
Totally.
It's a company culture issue. And everybody needs to have their statements be heard by their company, and every single person matters. I mean, when I was a CTO and I was running the tech department for a restaurant delivery service, I can't tell you how many times this guy comes to me and says, "Oh, we want to change this report." And they'd get upset that I'd say, "Hey, I have to go talk to these other four people that I know use this report before I can change it. That doesn't make any sense." And they'd get mad, like, "How come you can't do it now?" But like in today's world, unfortunately, diversity, equity, and inclusion has become something like some really weird, strange monster that people are afraid of. And the reality is, what I tell people, especially my tech clients that I coach, it's not about saying I'm going to have out of my team of six, I'm going to have three men and three women. It's about trying not to look at the background of the person, whether they're a male or a female, whether, what verticals they worked in. It's about looking at their skill set first. And so that's why a lot of the one who got it right was with a recruiting firm, and they tried to remove all identifying information from job submissions at first, because then what happens is they get yeah, I want to talk to this person, send me the full info, set up the interview. And then like, well, hold on a second. I'm not really interested in this person. Well, now they know it's got nothing to do with their skills, because if it had to do with their skills, they wouldn't have been interested in the first place. So I don't know. I think
Absolutely.
it needs to go somewhere different. And I like your approach. I like what you had to say about that. So let's, since we talked about culture, what's the company culture like at Atos Imaging, and how is the leadership team kind of fostering that positive and productive work environment?
Well, the good news is the culture is amazing. And it was a big criteria point for me in deciding to come, because I've gone to a company before that had a really toxic culture, and have learned that even coming into the C-suite and into an environment like that, if the rest of the team isn't really engaged in ensuring a phenomenal culture, it just won't happen. And so I really dug in, especially in all of the one-on-ones. I was able to do one-on-one interviews with almost every employee in the company. And I was able to ask them, okay, what do you really like about what you're doing? And what do you not like? And the number of people who said, I like that I have autonomy to build something great, that I can have fun, that I can laugh, that I am working with other people who respect me as a human being. I like that I can. I loved when I did an interview and with the team that now reports to me, and every single one of them had a unique question for me. You know what that said to me? It said that the CEO values the perspective of each of those employees in hiring someone who's going to collaborate closely with me. And that's the type of CEO I want to work with, is someone who really sees the value and the level of intelligence and well-being and all of those things in every single team member, regardless of what level they're at. So that really spoke volumes to me. And yet, one of the reasons for me to be excited to come in now is that the company has right at about 22 employees. And so when we were building Florence Healthcare, which now Florence, the previous software company that I did, Florence Healthcare now I think has close to 250 employees. But you have different pockets and different stages of where you risk losing that magic in your culture. And so I'm really passionate about making sure through those phases we figure out how to keep the company human centric and keep the culture the way that it needs to be going forward. And I'm really excited to be a part of that opportunity at Atos. And also really stoked that I'm starting off in a good place and I'm not having to like dig out. I actually wrote a blog post years ago. And so it's on my LinkedIn, at the top of my LinkedIn. You can go and find it. It's on my website as well. But I talked about why it's so important to build a company with a phenomenal culture from the very beginning, because it's really hard to turn around a moving train. And so Atos, Connor and John, everyone, especially everyone in the C-suite, I mean, it's just like he's put together a badass team of amazing people who really care about the customer. And when I say about the customer, that is the internal and the external customers. And each one of us are passionate about making raving fans out of all of those customers, regardless of who they are.